about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So the presidential debate was an unfortunate event for Biden. I thought, Trump did very well. I thought it was pretty polished. I thought he kind of kept himself in line in terms of not going off. And as I said before, it would have been a bad look to look like he was beating up on Biden being in a weaker state. Biden had a lot of mucus in his throat. I think he should have been given a mucolytic before he went on stage. You could tell that his voice was kind of phlegmy. COVID's going around. I wouldn't be surprised if he has COVID. His eyes didn't look red. Sometimes we get a little pink eye with that. But summer colds, COVID, that's kind of what's going on right now. So I wouldn't be surprised. And the White House said he had a cold. But in terms of justifying his performance yesterday, not a bad look. Or not a good look. And unfortunately, Biden did not appear well. And even media commentators who have strongly supported Biden this whole time even had said, this is not good. And today we are hearing calls for representatives and Kamala Harris and public officials to invoke the 25th Amendment. And it's a little bit of a mess right now. In the meantime, Biden says he's going to move forward and he's going to debate Trump again in September. So what is realistic in terms of what's happening right now? Because I'm hearing everybody go back and forth and does he have cognitive deficit? Is the cognitive deficit enough to, remove him based on the 25th Amendment? And so, we need to look at, remember, politics is going to drive any move, not common sense. You would think common sense, you would think medical recommendations would steer what happens. And no, it's all about politics, because whatever happens in terms of Trump or Biden could have long lasting effects on not only this election, but future elections. If the Democrats remove Biden, well, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they remove him, then they prove the GOP's case that Biden is not an effective commander in chief and is not fit for duty and possibly has not been fit for duty for a while. If the Democrats keep Biden, then they could be in trouble because Biden is not running the country well. And so they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. And so what are their options? So I was on with Alan Stock, Sam Wojcicki, Steve Sanchez yesterday doing a KXNT post-debate analysis. And so there was a lot of discuss on would Michelle Obama come, Gavin Newsom come in. Now, I told you guys my prediction was years ago that Biden at the end of his presidency would be so beaten, would be so defeated that he would not let his multiple decade career end on that note. And that if he was going to throw in the towel, he would do it on a high note. And what would be the most progressive, liberal, positive note that he could leave the presidency on? Telling the American public, guys, I'm going to be the one to give you your first female president. I'm going to step back. I'm going to let Kamala Harris take over. She's now your president. And I did that. So you could say whatever you want about my presidency, but I am the one that gave you the first female president. It doesn't really help women much, because we like to earn it the regular way. Okay, we don't need passes, but I don't see him getting thrown out at the Democratic convention and taking it lightly. So he has a decision to make. Is he going to leave on his own accord, controlling the situation, or is he going to let the Democrats, fumble around? The Democrats, on the other hand, they got a tall order here because you can't just replace somebody and say, look, I understand Biden won the primary. I understand all of you voted for Biden, but tough. We want Gavin Newsom. Okay, that's going to be a problem. Remember, we live in a democracy. This is America. Americans choose the president in hopefully a fair and ethical election. And so the primary process is part of that. So for the Democrats to bypass that primary process and say, no, Biden out, it might help them a little bit in terms of people who are struggling with Biden being their choice. But you have to involve the American public. And so it's looking more and more like if the Democrats were going to do anything, they either have to double down on their current president, commander-in-chief, or they have to go with Kamala. Because Kamala Harris is presumed to still be on the ticket for this next election. Now, Kamala Harris, I have no idea what her qualifications are. Obviously, the Biden presidency would not let her do much. And ouch, if you told me to be the border czar, I would be there that afternoon. And I would be meeting with all the Border Patrol and Customs and Homeland Security and say, what do you guys need? Give me a list, and I'm going to take it back to Biden, and I'm going to get this done. Get her done. That's what I would have done. And obviously, nobody wants you to do that. Nobody wants you to outshine the president. So her being border czar meant nothing. And so it doesn't look like she's accomplished much as a vice president except to support her president. But, to say Biden is out can hurt the Democrats. If Biden is forced out, that also can hurt the Democrats. And it could also weaken America's look on the world stage, which means the Democrats' options is to ask Biden to leave, giving him that kernel of, look, you'll be able to make history and you'll be able to go down as the president who gave us the first female president, or let him still be in control of or presumed control or the figurehead of whoever's controlling him. And I just don't see him being our president for the next 4 years. I just don't see it happening. So I hope he gets over his cold. I hope he gets better. It was sad to watch. And that's what I'm worried about from a medical standpoint. He needs help. But this replacing Biden is not as simple as somebody may think. 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen, and big thanks to Daniel, our producer. Don't forget to follow us on X or Twitter at Dr. Daliah, and on Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show. Plus on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So the Supreme Court decided today on a very serious public health issue that we have. One of the more serious public health issues that we are dealing with, that nobody seems to talk about a lot, but we need to, is our homelessness crisis. And these encampments of homeless individuals and people not having homes, people not having a place to stay, people not coming to this country and being sent outdoors. And mind you, we're coming into some extreme heat, some very extreme heat. And so the Supreme Court was asked to decide on whether cities could enforce bans on homeless people sleeping outdoors. Now, Fox 8 is reporting that the case is most significant to come before the High Court in decades on the issue, and comes as a rising number of people in the U.S. are without a permanent place to live. In a 6-3 decision, the High Court reversed a ruling by a San Francisco-based appeals court that found outdoor sleeping bans amount to cruel and unusual punishment. The majority found that the Eighth Amendment prohibition does not extend to bans on outdoor sleeping bans. That's kind of like a triple negative there. So according to Justice Neil Gorsuch, he said homelessness is complex. Its causes are many. So may be the public policy responses required to address it. A handful of federal judges cannot begin to match the collective wisdom the American people possess in deciding how best to handle a pressing social question like homelessness. He suggests that people who have no choice but to sleep outdoors could raise that as a necessity defense if they are ticketed or otherwise punished for violating a camping ban, meaning that these individuals would have an out. But homelessness, this is something that my cities, I think all cities across the country are dealing with. And a bipartisan group of leaders has argued that the ruling against bans make it harder to manage outdoor encampments encroaching on sidewalks and other public spaces. This also includes California, which is home to 1/3 of the country's homeless population. Cities across the West report that the Ninth Circuit involuntary test has created intolerable uncertainty for them. Now, homeless advocates, on the other hand, said that allowing cities to punish people who need a place to sleep would criminalize homelessness and ultimately make the crisis worse. Cities had been allowed to regulate encampments, but couldn't bar people from sleeping outdoors. Justice Sonia Sotomayor said sleeping is a biological necessity, not a crime. So, this is, as a physician, I'm really mixed on this, because whenever we see the Supreme Court make these decisions, it's not that they're saying, if you're homeless, you go to jail. What they're saying is the feds have certain jurisdiction, the states have certain jurisdiction. And if the states or the municipalities need to make rules based on, let's say, syringes are found at some of these encampments, and the encampment is right next to a kindergarten or a preschool, that the state should have the flexibility to manage these camps and make areas, restrictive or protective if there's kids, etc. The Supreme Court is not saying that anybody homeless has to go to jail. And so the case came from a rural Oregon town of Grants Pass, which appealed a ruling striking down local ordinances that fined $295 for people sleeping outside after tents began crowding public parks. The U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which has jurisdiction over the 9 western states, has held since 2018 that the bans violate the Eighth Amendment in areas that don't have enough shelter beds. So Grants Pass Mayor Sarah Bristol told the Associated Press that the city will not immediately start enforcing these local ordinances, finding people for sleeping outside, and that the city council will need to review the decision. Also, this is kind of ridiculous. The homeless people don't have the money for the fine. That's, so I think the issue that, and I get how the Supreme Court is saying, look, we this is between the states, the municipalities, what the local people need. If there's crime, if there's rape, if there's hepatitis, and they need to, make changes on their public health requirements, they could do that. Now, people wanted the Supreme Court to say, homelessness is not a crime. Well, it's not a crime. It's a crime to me for our government to not provide relief for our veterans and for our individuals who are homeless. It's a crime to continue to bring more people into this country and not allow there to be any control over the border when we have Americans that have no place to live. It's a crime to completely ignore the fact that we have individuals in the cold, in the heat, dying because we don't have a system or infrastructure to help them. And we're giving priority to non-Americans. Now, mind you, you have a migrant family, you have kids. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care what that child's legal or illegal status is. That child needs to be fed. That child needs to be sheltered. But you are no good to another country's migrants if you don't take care of your own individuals that don't have a place to live. And the more homeless encampments we have, the higher spread of disease. This is why we're seeing higher cases of tuberculosis. We're seeing higher cases of hepatitis, of other communicable diseases. All right? We need to figure this out. And so they say we have over 650,000 people estimated to be homeless, the most since the country began using a yearly point-in-time survey since 2007. Nearly half of them sleep outside. They say older adults, LGBTQ plus people, and people of color are disproportionately affected. In Oregon, a lack of mental health and addiction resources has also helped fuel the crisis. So, as a physician, we have got to put as a priority. I understand vaccines and COVID took all the priority over the last few years, but can we get real and address other issues that are causing other public health crises? And we don't want to see anybody stuck outside. We don't want anyone to be, to be at risk, not to mention from a safety standpoint. So maybe this will force cities to, one, go to the people, let the people decide where, what the city should do in terms of helping their community. Now, have you ever been so tired that you wanted to pull off the road and take a nap? Yeah. I know a lot of truckers. They have deadlines, but they need to sleep. So they may pull over and then take, and if there's no rest stop area, they may pull over to the side of the road and get some shut-eye. This is not supposed to be addressing that. All right? But you have other people, they live in their car. I remember there was one time where I was not going to have a place to live. So I was going to have to live in my car for a few days until I could find a place to crash. Homelessness runs the whole gamut of you having absolutely no place to live, no family, no food, nothing, and all you have is what's on your back. And then you have homelessness where, I lost my job, I can't afford the rent, so I'm just going to pitch a tent here until I could figure out, where I could go next. And this is on the cities. If the city's rent is too expensive for their community members to live, they have to come up with something better than them just sleeping out on the street. Again, I don't want any homeless person going to jail. But then on the flip side, if a city doesn't have proper facilities or food or shelter, then I remember homeless individuals coming to the hospital so they could get a meal. They would fake an illness or say they had an illness. Oftentimes, they didn't really have to fake it because they had something that could have been taken care of. And it allowed them to be indoors from the cold and get a meal. We cannot have our cities overwhelmed from a hospital standpoint, from a jail standpoint. There has to be other facilities available. And if a city cannot take care of the migrants or cannot take care of the overwhelming number of people that have no place to live and no job, then they need to immediately transfer their care or transfer their needs to a bigger entity or to the federal government. Just like with the hospital, if I'm running an ER and the ER is slammed and it is maxed to capacity and paramedics want to keep bringing in patients, it is my duty to tell them that I do not have a bed. I do not have facilities or staff to take care of them. You got to move them to another hospital. And that is what we really need. We need our federal government to step in and provide a better plan for our homelessness and maybe minimize the number of people coming in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Ryan asks, what do I think about the moderators of the debate, the presidential debate this week? Do I think they did a good job, bad job? It's interesting. I usually don't make an opinion on those types of things. I've seen Dana Bash and Jake Tapper, do their reporting, and they are big names with CNN. In terms of this debate, and I told you guys this, I expected a very underwhelming performance because I think everybody's wings are clipped and everybody had their breath held in terms of trying to make this happen. CNN had a very difficult task because they are not friends of Trump's. They do not necessarily support the Trump campaign. Yet they try to say they're neutral. There's been a lot of turnover with that media outlet. And in terms of being so vocally one-sided, that when you have people who are in the media and of that stature, they have to look like, especially if they're going to get the role of moderating a debate, to look like they're being fair and balanced. And CNN, I like to look at the psychology of media and the psychology of politics and elections, etc. And so right now, what is soaring Trump's popularity is his victimization. He has been beat up left and right by, as he perceives, the judicial system, in terms of having been, the Russia collusion, all this other stuff. And so while he's facing court case after court case after court case, to then bring him into a debate where then the moderators beat him up, it would support him even more. I have spoken to many Democrats who said, they just won't leave him alone. They just keep hitting him and hitting him. And he's holding his own. I mean, when you hear Democrats impressed with Trump still standing, Trump had said, look, I don't need to be here. I'm running because, he did a bad job as president. I told you what, I personally think President Trump is running because he needs to prove that he was never supposed to leave office, that the American people wanted him. They always wanted him. And, his narrative is the election, there was fraud in the election. So if he gets reelected, when there's more checks and balances in terms of the votes and the ballots and the harvesting and all the other stuff, then he could say, you see. So that's why he's running. He needs to show that he was never supposed to leave office because he doesn't think, that it was done fairly. Many people don't. So here's Dana Bash and Jake Tapper. By the way, I did not like Jake Tapper's tie. I really didn't like that yellow and dots. I think he's looked better in different ties, but that's okay. That tie bothered me. But this was not going to be the typical debate. CNN's main job was to get everybody to watch, to build it up as the Super Bowl of all debates, but at the same time, make sure Biden doesn't get pummeled and that Trump doesn't wipe the floor with Biden. And so they were very, the mic cutoffs and the succinct questions and if you notice, Trump didn't answer a lot of the questions. He's like, I need to go back to this. They even they went off on a tangent on golf, and it was not the easiest debate to watch. It was very frustrating. And so people are, bagging on the moderators. The moderator's job, it was to please CNN and to not to very delicately and kitten glove our current feeble commander-in-chief and walk him through a debate that everybody expected him to completely destroy, completely fail at. And so they had to keep it calm. They had to keep it. And in fact, you get Trump going and you get Trump riled up, you can't stop him. And he could very easily they could have woken the sleeping giant. And so for, the moderators to go after Trump, and that would be fuel to the fire. So you could even see they were uncomfortable. It didn't look like the typical Dana Bash, Jake Tapper. It looks like they were looking at the script, sticking to the script, and having all these restrictions on them to make sure that the debate went as CNN needed it to be. I don't know how many CNN logos there were. I think there were over 100 floating around behind. This was about, look, CNN had to get the credit. They had to get the ratings, but they also couldn't damage the Biden campaign. Or they couldn't be to blame for it. And so their primary goal was if Biden was going to fail at this, they did their best to prevent it. And so if that's the case, then, Bash and Tapper did their job. But I told you guys, don't expect this to be like a he said, she said, and arguing, and because Biden couldn't do that. The only way Biden could do it is if this was very, very controlled and very mild and meek. And it's we have a country that is in trouble. It's still the best country ever. I love America. God bless America. But we have veterans homeless. We have a VA system that needs a lot more work. We have obesity, poverty. We have a lack of sincere and accessible medical care. Biden brought up Obamacare. That was a mess. That was a mistake. He was bringing up how people have health insurance. They may have a card in their wallet, but they don't have access to doctors. Doctors have closed up because they're not being reimbursed. Look at how Walmart Health has had to close up. All right, it's not financially feasible. Obamacare with the deductibles and all the other BS. I think Biden had said that there was like an $8,000 tax credit that people were getting for their health insurance. Okay, that's still not enough to cover the premiums, especially since the premiums are skyrocketing because of these weight loss drugs. And so when I'm seeing, the average Joe individual have a very weakened form of health insurance that still leaves them with thousands upon thousands of dollars of bills or deductible before their insurance even will look at it, not to mention a multiple month wait to see a medical provider. No. And what got me was, our commander in chief needs to understand and needs to listen to his doctors that our healthcare system is an absolute mess. And what have we done on the border towns? We've overwhelmed the healthcare system with migrants who can't pay and individuals who, are not able to take care of themselves, find a home, find a job. We're not ready. Ellis Island would not let you in unless you had a place to live, you had a sponsor, or you had a job. And if you weren't healthy. Being a daughter of an immigrant, I want us to have a good immigration policy and allow people who need to flee to be here. But you can't do that until you're fixed, until you're healthy. And we're not healthy right now. When I see individuals call me up, which have clear signs of cardiac disease, renal disease, liver disease, full-blown diabetes, unmanaged high blood pressure, and I tell them they need to get seen. And they said, I can't. It's going to cost too much. You don't have Obamacare? Yeah, but it's a high deductible. Yeah, I hope somebody could come back and fix that. Trump couldn't. He promised he would, but he couldn't. If Congress didn't want to, why? Well, because the ACA, it's like a bomb with a red wire. You cut the red wire, it can implode the healthcare system. That's how it was designed. But, the moderators were just there to make CNN look as good as possible. And I wasn't expecting much. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Daliah, 1-877 DOC-DALI. So I know people wanted the Supreme Court to end June with some clarity on Trump and his immunity, but they extended they actually are going to be working on Monday. Monday morning is probably when we're going to get that ruling on the immunity of a sitting president, and can he be charged with things that happened while he was president. And I understand people are, if somebody is outwardly committing crimes, what sort of culpability and what sort of responsibility do they have? However, on the other end, if, Biden's debacle in Afghanistan caused people to die, is he going to be up for murder when he leaves office. And so there's an immunity umbrella that protects, because when presidents are commander in chief and they make decisions and drone strikes they could be prosecuted for the remainder of their life. So we'll see what happens there. In the meantime, the Supreme Court has said that the obstruction charges for the January 6 rioters could be thrown out. This is huge. This is huge for the many individuals who have been jailed for going into Capitol Hill. Some went peacefully, some broke windows. Those who vandalized, those charges would still stand. But Capitol Police allowing people to walk through the halls was that, did they deserve to be charged with obstruction? Well, a 6-3 decision now can upend hundreds of cases stemming from the January 6 riot, including Donald Trump's election fraud trial. The court's ruling makes it harder for January 6 defendants to be charged with obstructing an official proceeding. That carries up to 20 years in prison. Now, people had asked, how did they get the January 6 rioters, or those who were waving and bringing flags and at the Capitol? How did they get them for so many years in jail? Obstructing an official proceeding carries a heavy weight. That is one of the 4 charges facing President Donald Trump in Special Counsel Jack Smith's federal case. Even though Trump, had tweeted and told people, no, stand down, this isn't what we're doing. But 152 people have been convicted of obstructing an official proceeding. In all, the charge was brought against 350 people accused of trying to prevent Congress certifying Joe Biden's 2020 election victory. So the case was brought by a former Boston police officer, Joseph Fisher, who was indicted on 7 charges following the January 6 riot, including 1 count for anyone who corruptly obstructs, influences, and impedes any official proceeding. Justice John Roberts limited the obstruction of Congress charge that has been used now to prosecute the defendants. And he said the law was one of the more severe potential punishments. A broad interpretation of the law, according to Daily Mail, would also criminalize a broad swath of prosaic conduct, exposing activists and lobbyists to decades in prison. So Amy Coney Barrett joined Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor in the dissent. Now, a lawyer court dismissed the charge after Fisher's lawyers argued that he did not try to interfere with any documents or records. Federal prosecutors appealed, and a 3-judge panel in the D.C. Circuit reinstated the charge. So this is interesting. Obstruction of an official proceeding. So, to me, you would think law would be so much more obvious, but it's not. Every time you think that's a slam dunk, I mean, somebody banging on the Capitol in the rotunda, banging and threatening Congress people to not vote, that they are behind the door and going to hurt them. I mean, that obviously needs to carry charges. But somebody waving a flag, walking in, this was during the peaceful part of it, walking in, showing their flag, walking with the Capitol Police, saying, we are here to support America. Them getting charged with obstruction if they aren't threatening, and they aren't, they're. So this is where things start to need more clarification. And there are protesters always at the steps of the Supreme Court. There are protesters always at the steps of Capitol Hill. So if Capitol Hill's property include the steps, or include the grass or the sidewalk around it, does anybody who is holding signs saying, we don't want you to vote for Proposition X, Y, and Z, are they going to be in trouble for obstruction? And that is what I believe was part of what this all was about. Doctors who are, protesting pediatric gender affirming care and surgery, are they going to be in trouble for obstructing a proceeding? Like I said, I mean, it should be obvious. Somebody banging on the doors and going into private offices and trespassing, those are trespassing, those are obstruction charges. But, holding a flag saying, look, I would like a recount. I'm I don't trust what happened, with the mail-in ballots. Does that mean they should be put in jail for 20 years? And so, this is this was very telling. And Trump is facing criminal charges in 3 criminal cases. He was found guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records in New York. They keep coming at him, and this January 6th is a biggie. There's also been a lot of pressure on Trump from the GOP to pardon whoever went to jail for that. And so this helps definitely the Trump team in terms of, look, you being there, you waving a flag, you showing Capitol Hill that you don't agree that, the election was fair and square. Now, well, what did your behavior entail? And if the behavior was violent, because there's other charges, but, it seemed to me, and again, I, as an American, I want everything to be fair. I want, if you have 2 criminals that do the exact same crime, then their charges should be the exact same. But it seems to me that they really went after individuals in one case, but not in others. You had fires burning, you had riots, you had buildings burned down and looting, and I don't know if any of those people ever went to jail. But, you see people in face paint and walking around with the American flag and waving, and these people get up to 20 years of jail. Now, honestly, there was destruction of property. That's criminal. Going into Nancy Pelosi's private office, again, that's trespassing. And I'm no lawyer. I'm sure there's other laws that probably violated. But to obstruct an official proceeding starts to now make us doctors check ourselves, us, teachers check ourselves, because official proceedings happen. When the Nevada State Legislature, because I'm in Nevada, gives us no notice that all of a sudden, there's going to be something on Monday morning, and we all come down as quickly as possible to air our concern. And we may come in at, doctors, everybody, let's go. Look at what they want to do in terms of malpractice. Wear your coats, get over there, get down there. Are people going to say we're trying to obstruct an official proceeding? I think there should be obvious and non-obvious. But what happens with law is you dissect out the language and you go, you see, there you go. There's our in. There was official proceeding going on. They came into Capitol Hill, which is a public place, by the way. And they, it should be obvious. I understand there are certain no entry. By the way, maybe we need to then, when you see these no entry beyond this point, when you see these, those, violating that could come with obviously a penalty. But a 20-year penalty? So there has to be, it can't look like a biased justice system. And it has been. And the fact that this had to go up to the Supreme Court is frightening. It should be obvious. And I understand that nobody on Capitol Hill wants January 6th to happen again, because it could have been bad. It could have gone bad 7 different ways. But still, 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.